that we always see him.
Okay, welcome to the Administrative Committee meeting on Monday, July 10th. Catherine Bonzo to my right, Gina Truscio to my left, City Supervisor Reedner over here. First item up is the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve them. They look fine to me.
They looked fine to me, too.
I have to abstain, I wasn't here.
But you could say they were well-written.
They were well-written.
Good.
Well-written.
They're approved. Second item on the agenda is an ordinance to amend Moscow City Code to comply with statutory FBI regulations regarding background check requirements for city licenses. Mia Bautista and James Fry, up.
Thank you.
Well, you just pretty much summarized the presentation. There's not much to present here. It's more housekeeping. Public Law 92-544 and Idaho Code 67308 provides the parameters in which we can do background checks for licensing. And so we were non-compliant, and so they asked us to get in compliance, otherwise they're going to remove our ability to submit fingerprints for background checks for these various licensing that's listed in here. So the changes we made were more housekeeping, just so that we were in compliance with those two code sections.
How'd you find out you were out of compliance?
Yeah.
So when we have a FBI audit, they let us know things we need to fix and improve, and that was one of them. It was just in the city code, the verbiage. So when that happened, we met with legal and changed that.
So it was just a writing error.
It was the way that it was, the city code was written.
Okay.
So it's just a verbiage.
Okay.
And it was more expansive. It had more background check in the way the code was written before, where it included some national checks that are not permitted.
Oh,
So this is a little more restrictive, actually.
Oh, great.
So, looks good.
yep,
So,
I agree.
since it's an ordinance, is it regular?
Yes, sir.
Okay, on to regular it goes. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next up is Beer Garden Request for Rendezvous in the Park 2019, Greg Morrison.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm here representing Parks and Recreation Director Dwight Curtis. He's out of town today, so he asked me to fill in for him. So Rendezvous in the Park has, again, asked us to okay a beer and wine license for their program for the Rendezvous in the Park. It's at East City Park on July 18 through 20 from 4 to 10 p.m. They will provide their own security, as they have in the past. Police Chief Fry has approved it, as has the city attorney taken a look at it. So there hasn't been any problems in the past, and hoping to obviously continue with the program as it is.
Cindy Faircloth, the co-president of Rendezvous, is here if you have any questions or would like to.
I don't have any questions. I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, we're beginning to see these become much more common and familiar, so it's a great request, so.
And as an extension of that, Rendezvous's been going on for 38 years
38
and
years,
haven't
wow.
had any problems. And actually, a lot of these other events have also gone on without any problems either, which indicates that the organizers have things well under control. So I think this is drop dead easy, and
Yep.
we should approve it. So, consent,
Yes, sir.
rock and roll.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Your Honor, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind going to item 5, since Cindy is here, and this has to
Okay.
do with Rendezvous as well.
Okay, we'll shuffle 4 and 5 and do a request for Rendezvous in the Park to waive the permit fees.
Okay, I'll give a quick background on it. During one of our council leadership meetings, Jim Boland, who has a long history with Rendezvous, indicated that he would like to have an agenda item come before the council, that because Rendezvous in the Park was initially a city-funded and city-sponsored event that later went on to the nonprofit board, that he thought that it was only fair that since the nonprofit board assumes all the risk, so on and so forth, and utilizes the funding from the event to seed the money into the next year's event, that paying city fees for the use of the park, the beer and wine catering permit, so on and so forth, he would like to see the council consider waiving that in light of the nature of the event. There are two fees typically that are within my purview to waive, and I've done that in recent history. One is for sanitation, the dumpsters and so on for the event, and the second is for the fee hanging the banner over Main Street. Those are two things specifically that I can waive, and I have done so in the past. The alcohol fee, the waiver of the park fee, is not something that I'm granted the discretion to do. So the second part of this request is to have the council specifically grant that discretion, similar to the thing Dwight asked for a couple weeks ago regarding Moscow Charter School, that as long as the event stays the same, that the fees to be waived are for the same things that they're being requested today, that the city supervisor, in his or her discretion, would be allowed the discretion to waive those fees as well. So with that, I turn it over to Cindy if she has anything else to say.
You covered it.
And I just wanted to clarify too, these do have to come up yearly, like when the Parks and Rec came for that request. We always have to do this, even though there's certain things for your discretion, anything else we have to do annually.
Yeah, I do not waive fees that it's not specifically through council resolution, council direction, or authorized by ordinance. I don't waive those fees.
Well, good. When did you become co-chair?
This is my second year as co-chair.
Oh, very good.
Here on the
And
board.
then who do you co-chair with?
Tom Preston. He's in Romania this week, so.
Okay.
That's a good excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has the board stayed pretty much the same?
Yeah,
Or is
I
it
think-
beginning to?
Well, Jim's been on forever, but I
Yeah.
think in general, people are on for, trying to think, 8 to 10 years at
Yeah.
a time. So it's
When-
pretty stable.
Do you know when it became a nonprofit?
Oh, Jim could tell you. I want to say
I think it was
15 years in?
I think maybe even before that, because
10
I don't
years in.
believe it was a city function when I came here in '92. I could be wrong, but
Wow.
yeah, I think maybe the city did it for about 10 years, and then the nonprofit board took on the work.
Oh, very good.
So it's been a while, and the fee waiver was not a heap of bucks for the city, but it's probably a heap of bucks for the organizing committee.
if I may. One of the things, too, the reason that I wanted to bring this forward specifically is because of the nature of the event that we're requesting that discretion. There are several other events in East City Park, all of whom pay whatever park rental fee or park reservation fee, catering permits, those sorts of things. Those events did not begin with the city, so wanted to make sure that this was specifically something that is a one-and-done type thing, that every nonprofit, although they certainly can come ask for waiver of those fees, it's different from this. We didn't want to set any precedent by that.
And are you waiving sanitation in the banner?
Yes.
That's the only two.
And typically, we do for Renaissance Fair, we do for Hemp Fest, anything that has a community-wide impact, we typically do that. That banner fee is waived quite a bit because typically it's nonprofit stuff, you know. So those things that are specifically within my purview, I look at it, look at the magnitude and the impact, and then make a decision based upon that.
I'm entirely comfortable with waiving these fees. I'm feeling the yen to maybe put some criteria down for how we make those decisions, because if I do work for a nonprofit. It is a bit of a gray area, and it has nothing to do with Rendezvous or anything like that, but I do think maybe it would be of value
Have
to
an
put some of
SOP or
that,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. And because we all need to do those succession drills, and what do we
Sure.
do if we lose that brain? So,
We could certainly work on something like that and bring it back and advise the committee.
I think that'd be useful. Thank you. It doesn't have to be in the next 3 days.
Okay.
But in the meanwhile, I'm comfortable with waiving off those fees.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And are you comfortable with that second part too, then? Granting the city supervisor the authority to waive fees in the future at his or her discretion?
On this particular issue, yes, but as Gary points out, with other issues, not so much.
So yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Yep.
Well, but it is specific. It just says these two things in 2019. You think in the future for
No.
just these two events then? Is that what you're saying when you wanted?
No, just this
in the
one.
future
Criteria?
means not just 2019.
So that's why you're saying you want a criteria for that upcoming, whatever it's going to be?
Well, no, for other future events with nonprofits that may be wishing to have fees waived, to have some kind of a rationale behind why some get fees waived
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this, because it
I
started
just-
with the city versus just other nonprofits. Have some rationale
Transparency.
behind the decision.
Yeah.
And equality, right? Just because Gary knows about it. Even though he knows all, which we know that, but anyway.
We won't always be here. I might get.
Okay.
Consent agenda?
Yes, please.
Consent, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy?
Okay, into reverse and back up to number 4, which is surplus of fire engine to rural fire districts, Genesee and Wheatland. Chief and Gary.
Brief history for this. Fire trucks do not have a lot of resale value if they are beyond their useful life. The National Fire Protection Association has what is essentially a 20-year lifespan for fire apparatus. So at the end of that life, they can't, larger departments, and we would be considered a larger department, typically depreciates these things out, sells them for salvage to get what they can as we buy new engines. Historically, the city has, we haven't sold a fire engine in quite a while, but last time we did, we ended up selling it, I believe, to the city of Deary, if memory serves, for like $1. Because they don't have a lot of value. The CCSR, we went into a little bit of history, and the chief can expound on this. We had been told by the people who said, oh yeah, you bet, it's worth about $25,000 on trade-in. They declined to take it on trade-in. We advertised it, sent it to sent the advertisement to a consignment outfit that specializes in used fire apparatus. In Colorado, haven't had a bite on it, so we tried reducing the price, still no bites on it. So these things continue to sit outside. In the summertime, that's not a big deal, but once winter hits, we go to freezing temperatures, they will suffer damage, and we don't have a lot of room in a controlled environment to store these things. It may be in the future that we might keep an extra apparatus around to assist us with our Class 3 ISO rating. Neither of these engines fit that criteria, so there's no thought on the part of the fire department to retain them. Asked the chief, since we were unable to get any bites on selling them, to talk to local fire districts and cities to see if they had an interest. He can talk about how he did that, but the two takers that have indicated an interest are Wheatland Fire Protection District out in south of
Nespers County.
Nez County, but south
Yeah,
of
south of Lewiston.
of Lewiston.
Okay.
And it's a fairly new fire protection district. If you read the letter, was the letter included?
Yep.
Yeah.
The letters,
Yeah.
both letters were.
Yeah,
Yep.
they offered like $3,500 over several years, so they don't have a lot of money. Genesee, again, small district. They're just constructing a new fire house there, and they're having a lot of issues getting enough money to finish that project. As Chief Crick put in his letter, that it would help them with their own ISO rating. It's not as high as the city's, our ISO rating, but again, if the council would like, these are surplus items. They are sister governmental entities. You certainly have the discretion to transfer them if you so desire, Chief. If you want to say anything, feel free.
These two organizations just are in need. I mean, it's pretty simple. And I did talk to all of the fire districts in the county personally on the phone and just see if they expressed interest. And that's why actually we ended up with Wheatland as well, even though it's not in the county here. So, but Genesee was the only one in the county that really, Bill was the only one that expressed interest. And in it because of the new fire station, like Gary said. And it will help with their ISO stuff. They need to pump capacity is really what they need. So, Wheatland, again, is a small fire district, not a lot of funds, so.
You recall that we had some SCBA's that we surplused at no cost to Big Canyon Fire District
Yep.
out by Weippe. So council's had a history of doing this sort of thing. If anything, those SCBA's were more marketable than these engines have proven to be. So,
Yeah.
again, council's discretion.
Yeah. The letters were very nice that were included in the package, and, you know, these guys are, please help us out.
Yep.
And I think it's a really virtuous thing to do. Benefits them, and we don't have use for it. I don't want to be a dog in the manger. So-
We're storing one outside right now, the other one's inside, but it's gonna be sitting outside here and probably in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
3 weeks, when the new one gets done.
So, yeah.
We would invite the chief of the fire district and the city department to come in at council. I'd suggest that if this is your desire, that you make it a regular agenda item, just for the purposes of transparency.
Well, it's public property, and transparency is a good thing to do, so yeah, regular agenda. And besides, I don't know, it's a good thing for Moscow. to
It's
feel good
awesome.
about, too.
It's great moment to share with the,
If we had keys with it, we'd say give them the keys, but they don't have keys.
they don't have keys?
No.
I never knew that.
Turn a switch, push a
Nobody
button.
steals fire engine.
Yeah.
Now that you told me how to turn it on,
Switch
maybe
and
I
push a
will.
button.
Oh, my.
It's awesome.
Trust me,
I
find
think
the
that's
button.
great. I think regular agenda for sure.
Oh, yes. So, well, now the cat's out of that bag.
So is the consensus to approve?
Yes.
Yes.
Recommend approval?
Heartily
Yes,
approve.
of both of them.
Yeah,
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
yes, yes.
Chief, this is great.
Yep, thank you.
Good work on
Appreciate
that. And that brings us to the end of the agenda.
Staff has nothing further for the committee.
Excellent. Short meetings today. We're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.